What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of This Is Not Our Regularly Scheduled Programming. As always, I am your host, Zach Cronin, and today we are going to be talking about a turd that is so stinky and so rancid that I postponed the video that I was going to post to make this one instead. I don't even know where to begin with this, so I might as well not bury the lead. SB Nation published a stink piece on Karl-Anthony Towns titled "An Ode to Karl-Anthony Towns, the most annoying guy in the NBA." This title is highly sensational. It is very clickbaity, or at least so I thought. This is shitting on him as a person, and I find that to be very disgusting. I wouldn't call it journalism per se because SB Nation is not a website that I imagine has a lot of journalistic integrity. They are a content mill, which is fine. Get that money however you need to. This is amateurish. This is something that you would see on a sites.google.com website. And I think it's extra disgusting because when you have a large platform, you have to be very careful with what you post. And perhaps I'm just looking at it differently because when you're talking about sports and you're talking about athletes, I think that they should be criticized based on their athletic performance. And if they off the court do something that is especially heinous, they should be lambasted, whatever the fuck it is, for that as well. DV, SA, something like that. But this is just saying that Karl-Anthony Towns is cringe and that the author doesn't like that he's cringe, so he dedicated like 1,000 words to describing why he's cringe. And it's just a horrible use of time, of energy, and it's a really fucking silly thing to write about when we are in it's a really silly thing to write about in general, but even more so when there is an actual playoff series going on that Towns is partaking in. If this article were critical of Towns's shot selection, of his inopportune fouls, that is something that I would be like, okay, this is, valid criticism because those are valid criticisms of Karl-Anthony Towns. His shot selection is suspect at times. He does have the propensity to pick up silly fouls where he's called for a reach in at half court. But we're going to go ahead, we're going to skim through this, and we are just going to look at some of this drivel that this author has put together. Now, I just because we are going to hate on this article, do not go to this post, do not go to this author's social media and send him hate. I do not believe in that sort of retaliation. Two wrongs don't make a right. We're just here to clown on somebody who made a mistake. We're going to do that in this video, and we're not going to send any additional hatred to this person. The article begins like this. In 2022, after finishing 7th in the West and bowing out with an unremarkable 2-4 first round loss to the Memphis Grizzlies, Minnesota Timberwolves center Karl-Anthony Towns took out a one-page ad that could have easily been an email in the Star Tribune thanking fans for the season and reaffirming his dedication to his team and the state of Minnesota. The ad reads like a Players Tribune post that was rejected by the site's founder and uncredited editor-in-chief, Derek Jeter, because there were simply, quote, too many bland cliches. If the ad is understandably a TLDR situation for you, Cat walks the reader through his trajectory as an ingenuine proto stretch four from New Jersey who is embraced by what we can all agree has historically been a warm and welcoming environment for outsiders that despite the disappointing results of that season, he'd be working hard in his body and his game to do better next time. The picture accompanying the text is Cat posing with the basketball held at his waist, an eyebrow raised, giving the camera side eye with a look he clearly believes is conveying, quote, let's get to work, but is giving something closer to, quote, I got this portrait taken at J.C. Penney, and I'm trying really hard to look tough. How do you, what the fuck kind of lead up is this? Towns is just trying to do something nice for the community that has been so welcoming to him. I don't understand why the author is so offended by Towns taking out a one-page ad in a fucking newspaper or on a website. It's the equivalent of him posting this same shit on Instagram. It's just in a different medium. The ad, and particularly the try hard energy in its intent and execution, is the perfect distillation of why Towns is by far currently the most annoying player in the NBA. This is a huge assertion to make about anybody. There are 450 guys in the NBA, and their level of annoyance is almost entirely dependent on what your perception of annoying is. I was watching the interview with Anthony Padilla and Baby No Money, and they were more or less saying that cringe and corniness is subjective to everybody. You can look at anything and automatically perceive it as cringe and corny. You can look at Luka Doncic and say that he is cringe and is corny. Like you could look at Cam Newton and say that he is cringe and corny. You can't just assert that Towns is the most annoying player in the NBA. You can assert that to you he is the most annoying player in the NBA, but that's also a really stupid assertion because it's a character takedown and has nothing to do with his ability to play basketball. What makes Cat paradoxical is he probably lands somewhere around the 0.1% in people who should have to try the least to be successful on a basketball court or in life. He's half black and half Dominican, 7 feet tall, and looks annoying. Is this a racist thing to say? He's half black and half Dominican, 7 feet tall, and looks annoying. On what basis can you assert that? I mean, I would never say that about. I don't think any respectful person would say that about anyone else because I have big ears and a unibrow. I'm 5'7" and walk around with a size 11 shoe that makes me look like a clown. If I were to say this about Cat, he could say that about me. Don't throw stones if you live in a glass house. Just be nice, be courteous. The basic respect for the not even the athlete, but the person that is Karl-Anthony Towns is thrown out the window 3 paragraphs into this post. Additionally, does Cat really have to listen to, or does Cat really have to put up with this with all of the stuff that he's gone through? This is a blind read for me. I only skimmed it. I don't know if this author is going to touch on any of the seriously traumatic events that Karl-Anthony Towns has gone through. His mother passing away, multiple loved ones passing away over the last 4 years. Like, this young man has been through so much, and he doesn't deserve to be treated like this. We're going to continue. Like, the actor Justice Smith was rendered as a character on Brendan Small and Lauren Bouchard's Squiggle Vision classic home movies, but he's also objectively conventionally attractive. What? Bro, I'm so lost. His dad was a coach and he was born gifted. Statistically, he's close to the most skilled, sweet shooting big man who has ever played in the league. He has a charmed trajectory, a blue chip freshman to Kentucky who was drafted first overall in completely uncontroversial fashion by the Timberwolves and won Rookie of the Year. Over 8 years, he has been named All-NBA third team twice, has made 4 All-Star teams, and won the three-point competition at the 2021-22 All-Star Weekend. When he puts his mind to it, he's a talented rebounder and capable defender on the wing or when protecting the rim, particularly as an interchangeable component of the gigantic three-headed Hydra Minnesota has assembled with Gobert and Naz Reid. If you wanted to build a stretchy big man for the modern game in the lab, he would undoubtedly share many traits with Cat, or he'd just be Cat, which is true. I mean, Cat, when he's on, he's a very, very good basketball player. Definitely All-NBA caliber. But yet, up until this point, none of his detractors have centered on the basketball. Like, you can't say that he looks annoying and expect it to be fine when you're like, oh, but no, he's a very good basketball player. And yet, and yet, in his off-court persona, his on-court demeanor, and his style of play, Karl-Anthony Towns is a Tim Robinson character, a doofus who acts strangely and obnoxiously, oblivious to being the butt of the joke, a player who is grading whether he is talking what he thinks is effective trash, or whining to the refs, or pouting on the sideline, or making a bizarre read when he attracts a double team, or most famously, fouling at the worst possible moment. Even his name is a personification, a kind of human expression of the most profoundly annoying domesticated animal, a kind of human expression of the most profoundly annoying domesticated animal. If you were to take a cat and turn them into a human, they would be a silent gremlin who has a staring problem. And then they would walk up to you and smack you in the face. Or they would jump on the table, take your piece of salmon, and flop it onto the floor. This isn't even like good comedy writing. This is just this is just lazy. This is just lazy. Cat is confounding because he's incredibly skilled and athletic, but also uncoordinated, often seeming less like he's moving on his own volition than being piloted by a small, gifted rat manipulating his body from a perch on his head nestled inside of his hair, or like he's a giant inflatable sock having air blown through his body in an effort to attract prospective buyers to a used car lot. What? So he flails his arms and his limbs, and that makes him uncoordinated. I actually did some journalism for this piece and reached out to two friends who are passionate Wolves fans to give me the Homer perspective on what makes Cat such an irritating day in, day out watch. This, I did some journalism and reached out to two of my friends. This is not The Onion, but it reads like The Onion. And I have a strange feeling. I don't want to project, but did the author know that the sense of sarcasm may not translate through this piece? Because up until this point, there hasn't been any sarcasm. It's just been him saying that Cat is tall and looks annoying, and that it's not Ratatouille, it's Catatouille. The sarcasm is not being picked up at all, I don't think, by the reader. Maybe I'm wrong. They told me Finch calls it stray voltage when his arms are flailing on a drive, hooking defenders, and then whining, claiming they hooked him first, or just falling down on drives, as if this doesn't happen to 90% of guys in the NBA. Have you never seen a player fall down driving to the hoop? I mean, Steph Curry fucking slipped on what would have been a wide open dunk and then airballed the three. There's also pretty much any guard on a drive is hooking. There are players who play with their back to the basket and hook their defender all the time. Like James Harden popularized this move. Every ball handler has tried to do that at least once to assert that Cat is annoying because he does this. Meanwhile, Luka has done stuff like that in the past. Kyrie has done stuff like that in the past. It just comes off as incredibly biased against Karl-Anthony Towns as a person. We're almost done, thank God. My Wolves friends went on to point out that there have been several motivating factors in Cat's career that should engender some sympathy and goodwill for him, some understanding of his fundamental catness. The tragic loss of family members to COVID, losing Flip Saunders, a mentor father figure who drafted him, having Jimmy Butler and a crew of practice players rip out his and Andrew Wiggins' beating hearts and displaying them for the world to see. And this is all valid, compelling, and tells part of the story. But I have another overriding factor that speaks to Cat's inherent nature, which he and many others like him can't do much about. He's corny. Corniness is subjective. I think that this article is corny. He is the latest in a lineage of guys on the team who always seem to get bagged on out of coach's earshot. Wait, what? He is the latest in a lineage of guys on the team who always seem to get bagged on out of coach's earshot, the back of the bus. He is the latest in a lineage of guys on the team who always seem to get bagged on out of coach's earshot, the back of the bus. Great job, editor. You missed a fucking word. He's Marlon Wayans in Above the Rim. He's Cheryl Miller's younger brother. He's Dwight Howard. He's J. Cole. I haven't heard any evidence of this, but I know in my heart he can do that special teams, special plays, Tuesday thing verbatim. Oh my God, there are. Bro, did the editor stop reading this? There's a missed word here. There's a typo here. Verbatim, and he's been hoping for months someone would give him the prompt to show off. He has a goofy sense of humor, bad social instincts, and no filter. I don't understand the no filter thing. He Cat does seem like he has a goofy sense of humor, but I don't think that's inherently a bad thing. Like if you're just a goofy guy, you can generally have fun in any sort of situation, which is which is a pretty good thing to have. Also, this author just shoehorned like three, like not even three modern day, yeah, three modern day references. J. Cole, corny, depending on who you ask. He's also talking about. I'm pretty sure he's talking about Sketch in this one, but for some reason didn't mention that. He has a goofy. Okay, it's unfortunate and again not his fault, but he was simply born lame. Like, how do you sit at your computer and write that? Like, how badly has Karl-Anthony Towns rubbed you the wrong way for you to just be like, oh, he was just simply born lame? And while it might run contrary to much of what's written above and is doubtful to be believed by any Wolves fans who hate read this, none of this is to bag on Cat. You just bagged on him, bro. Like, you spent 8 paragraphs bagging on him, calling him corny, saying he was born lame, saying that he is annoying or looks annoying and is uncoordinated. You can't be like, nah, but I'm not bagging on him. Like, if you're gonna write a shit piece like this, stand on business. You got to be like, and for any Wolves fans who hate read this, yes, I'm bagging on Cat. I do not like him. I think he's corny. What is like? Why are you trying to shield yourself? If you're gonna hate on somebody, you need to stand on your hatred. This is like, I'm not saying this, but if I were, this is what I would say. What I appreciate about him and other annoying professional athletes is they prove that even tall, rich, good-looking, highly coordinated superstars can also be goofy, weird, and awkward. Now you're backtracking. You're trying to erase all of the negative things that you said. You're contradicting yourself in an article where the headline is literally Cat is the most annoying NBA player. You also said that he was uncoordinated before. I'm picking at semantics here. I recognize that. But if you're just going to say that, yeah, it's cool that a tall, rich, good-looking guy can also be goofy, weird, and awkward, what is the point of all of the additional trash that you're throwing onto him? It doesn't make sense. The sudden success of this Wolves team should theoretically quiet the annoying allegations, but has instead only served to amplify them because of their unique social experiment like composition of personality types. On one polar end, there's Cat, and the second most annoying player in the league, Rudy Gobert, lending the Wolves front court an occasional Two Stooges like energy. On the other, there's Anthony Edwards, another first overall pick, quickly becoming the best of his generation, who immediately hijacked what was ostensibly Cat's team with both his insane on-court theatrics and quite possibly being the closest thing sports has to Ferris Bueller. Not that I want to bring this up against Anthony Edwards, but there are things in his past that you could criticize him for. Like, if you're gonna criticize Cat on all of these if you're gonna do a character takedown of Cat, you should at least acknowledge that Anthony Edwards has done things in the past that don't reflect so nicely on him now. With the whole send the video thing and also his use of homophobic slurs. I'm glad that he has seemingly matured from these situations and that he recognizes what he has done is wrong. And again, I also recognize that there are very few perfect superstars in the NBA. You look at what Michael Jordan had off the court, you look at what Kobe Bryant had off the court. Obviously, to a lesser degree, there's Steph Curry, who is against affordable housing. The thing that I'm trying to get at here is that if you're going to talk about basketball players and what they do off the court, or you're just going to do ad hominem attacks against them, do that with every other basketball player that you talk about. Like, if you're going to claim Rudy Gobert is annoying, yeah, you could cite him touching all the mics when the news of COVID first broke out. If you're not going to do that, there's no point to writing this article. If it's going to be about non-basketball for one person, it has to be about non-basketball for everybody. Watching him sun Cat on and off the court with the regularity of a sarcastically mean but funny and loving big brother to a player who has been in the league twice as long and is 6 years his senior makes my point for me in their dramatic contrast. Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns are, as of right now, very similar to each other in terms of skill. And they are both very necessary to one another for this team to be successful. Anthony Edwards has not sunned Cat on and off the court. They're friends. They play basketball together. They have the same mindset, and they are both equally important to Minnesota. We can pull up the box score for game 4, which I'm going to do right now, and you will notice that Karl-Anthony Towns finished with 25 points on 9 of 13 shooting and was a plus 15 before he fouled out of this game. Anthony Edwards, 29 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists, good all-around production, was rather inefficient in this one, shot about 44% from the field, and was a plus 7. Minnesota does not win this game if Karl-Anthony Towns is not as good of a basketball player as he is. Their bond appears to be tight and genuine, and should be, because Anthony Edwards is smart enough to know that the Wolves' ultimate failure or success in this current iteration of the historically fallow franchise rests on Cat's broad shoulders. It is both of them. They are both, it is a symbiotic relationship between these two guys. If you take either one of them out of the equation, this roster falls apart. As a matter of fact, if you take Jaden McDaniels out of the equation, if you take Mike Conley out of the equation, this roster falls apart. I understand in the grand scheme of things, Cat is the foundation, or Cat and Ant are the foundation. But the current iteration of this roster requires every single one of these players to produce. I mean, we've seen Jaden McDaniels have fantastic games when Ant wasn't shooting the ball well, or when Cat wasn't shooting the ball well. No clearer evidence of that can be found than their stunning Game 7 triumph over the Nuggets, featuring a historic in-game comeback and one of the craziest upsets of a defending champ we've seen in 20 years. Ant was fine in that game, but Cat was great, turning in a tidy 23 points on 8 of 14 with a late putback dunk that will probably go down as the lasting image from that series as a punctuation. And we have finally reached the end of this dog shit ass article. Now, just as stunningly, it will take another historic comeback for the Wolves to get back in a series with the Mavericks. I can imagine few people saw as a blowout coming in. This is largely because Cat has been non-existent, a huge detriment to his team through 3 games, putting up shooting numbers that look like modern baseball averages and largely disappearing from the matchup that has been all Mavs thus far. In defeat, Cat has responded in typical fashion with bewilderment, claiming to the press in a post-game interview that he's been putting up 1,500 shots a day, or, trying really hard. I cringed. I'm happy for you, Abe, that you cringed at that. And yes, I will agree that when Cat said he was putting up 1,500 shots, I called cap on it. But that was because everyone knows he's not putting up 1,500 shots. I will, again, repeat myself what I said in the beginning. I think that this is just a gross hit at Cat as a person. The basketball portion of this piece is minimal. It's at the end. It really is just a stink piece about Karl-Anthony Towns. I think it's ill-advised. It should not exist. But now that it does exist, it is open to criticism. If you're going to discuss basketball players, if you're going to discuss athletes, talk about their performance on the court, on the pitch, on the field. Don't resort to attacking how they look. Don't resort to attacking their proportions. It's silly. It's childish. It's all fine and dandy to make jokes online, but this does not come off as a joke to me. This comes off quite mean-spirited, and I would like to see less of this in the sports media landscape. And I'm not trying to come off as like Jesus Christ. I'm not trying to appear as an angel, because I have made jokes about NBA players in the past. Tongue-in-cheek, it's fun. Everyone enjoys a good joke every now and then. Everyone enjoys being a hater, but there are levels to being a hater. And this is probably close to the very top. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out. Thank you guys so very much for coming to hang out with me today. As always, everything I'm associated with is down in the description box below. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a like on this video. If you enjoyed it, drop a comment as well. It really helps out with the algorithm. If you do any of those 3 things, you'll become my new favorite person. And with that, I will catch y'all in the next one.